Hello and welcome. My name is Carol Antiquera, a PA in the Division of Gastroenterology at the University of Miami in South Florida. So, we've established the importance of colorectal cancer screening. Now let's talk a little bit about how we do that. The good thing about colorectal cancer screening is that patients have several options when it comes to screening. Now, let's review these options. But before we do that, I do want to make an important point that the guidelines for frequency are based on the sensitivity and specificity of each test, and so it really is important to adhere to those specific guidelines. Options can be categorized into non-invasive, which are your stool and blood-based screening test, or direct visualization, which includes sigmoidoscopy, colonoscopy, and CT colonography. Now, let's start by discussing our stool-based testing. One of the options is a high-sensitivity guaiac fecal occult blood test. Now, this test is a stool test that uses chemical for occult blood in stool using a guaiac-coded card. This test does require dietary restrictions and 3 stool samples to be turned in order to be done appropriately. And it is recommended to be done yearly based on its sensitivity and specificity. Fecal immunochemical test, or the FIT test, is an antibody test used to detect blood in stool. This requires 1 single stool sample, and it is also recommended to be done yearly. Another option is our multi-targeted stool DNA test. Now, this test is able to detect DNA biomarkers from cancer cells that are shed from the lining of the colon and the rectum into stool. For this study, it is required that the patient collect the entire bowel movement, and it is recommended that they repeat this test every 3 years to adhere with the guidelines. Now that we've discussed the stool-based options, let's discuss direct visualization options, starting with colonoscopy. Now, this study allows for visualization of the whole colon with a colonoscope. This allows for screening and treatment to be performed during the same visit. So if patients are found to have a polyp, they could be removed, or if they need a biopsy, this can also be done at the same time. However, it is important to note that this test does require a bowel prep, anesthesia or sedation, as well as transportation to and from the screening examination, as patients will not be allowed to drive home after they've had sedation. Of course, as with any invasive study, there is a potential risk for bleeding and perforation, and this risk increases with age. The recommended frequency for colonoscopy is every 10 years. CT colonography is another option that allows for direct visualization. Now, this study is done via a CT scan. It does require bowel prep, but anesthesia is not required. This study also has the ability to detect polyps, but will not have the capability of removing those polyps at that time. So patients found to have a positive study will need to proceed with a colonoscopy. It's also important to note that with this study, there is limited evidence regarding the potential benefits and harms. The recommended frequency for this study is every 5 years. Flexible sigmoidoscopy is also direct visualization from the rectum to the sigmoid colon or descending colon. In my practice, I refer to this as a mini colonoscopy, and thus similar to the colonoscopy, there is still a slight risk of bleeding and perforation, but it is less than with a full colonoscopy. The recommended frequency for this study is every 5 to 10 years when done in conjunction with a fecal immunochemical test every year. Lastly, we have a blood-based cell-free DNA test. Now, this blood test can detect colorectal cancer-derived alterations in cell-free DNA. I do also want to highlight that it's very important that we let our patients know if they do choose screening with any of our non-invasive options. If any of those tests do come back positive, it is recommended that they proceed with a colonoscopy for direct visualization and evaluation of that positive test. So now that we've covered the types of tests that are available for colorectal cancer screening, we can help our patients choose the best one for them. Tune into my next video where I will walk you through considerations for helping your patients in choosing the best test for them.